Dadperfectrevenge. I stood in the hospital morgue, my hands shaking as the attendant pulled back that white sheet. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and my son Ryan was right beside me, crying his eyes out. Or at least that's what it looked like. The attendant waited for me to confirm what everyone already believed, that this was Dorothy, my daughter-in-law, Ryan's wife of 4 years. My name's Harold Pierce. I'm 58, retired construction engineer. Been widowed for 3 years now. Never thought I'd be identifying bodies, especially not my own family. The woman on the table had the right birthmark, the right scar above her eyebrow. She'd supposedly fallen from Eagles Peak Trail after being missing for 3 days. But something felt wrong. Maybe it was 35 years in construction, learning to spot when something doesn't add up. Maybe it was how Ryan gripped my arm too tight when we walked in. His crying seemed forced, like he was putting on a show. "Dad?" Ryan's voice cracked. "Is it her?" I opened my mouth to say yes when my phone buzzed. Who texts you at a moment like this? But it buzzed again and again. "Give me a moment," I told the attendant, stepping back. Ryan shot me a look, annoyance, fear. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. 3 messages from an unknown Colorado number. First message, "It's not me." Second message, a photo. My heart stopped. It was Dorothy, very much alive, holding today's newspaper. The wildfire headline was clearly visible with today's date. Third message, "Ryan tried to kill me. Don't confirm the body. Mountain View Inn, room 247. Come alone." I stared at my phone, mind racing. The attendant coughed politely. Ryan was watching me now, his red eyes sharp and calculating. "Dad, what is it?" 35 years of managing construction projects taught me one thing. When someone's lying, don't let them know you figured it out. Not until you have all the facts. Nothing. "Just work stuff," I lied, sliding the phone away. I looked back at the body, at this woman who looked like Dorothy, but couldn't be Dorothy. "I can't do this. I'm sorry. Ryan, you'll have to identify her. I can't." Ryan hesitated for just a second before stepping forward. "It's her," he said firmly. "It's my wife. It's Dorothy." The attendant made notes. "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Pierce. We'll need some paperwork signed." I backed toward the door, mumbling about needing air. Ryan barely looked at me, already asking about cremation timelines. His eagerness to move things along made my stomach turn. The drive to Mountain View Inn took 20 minutes. My mind raced the whole way. Dorothy and Ryan had been married for 4 years. She was a hospital administrator, smart and organized. Ryan worked in real estate development, always talking about big deals that never seemed to pan out. Room 247 was at the end of the walkway. I knocked softly. The door opened immediately. There she was, alive. Her blonde hair was dyed brown, and she wore glasses I'd never seen, but it was definitely Dorothy. She pulled me inside quickly. "Harold, thank God." She started crying, real crying, not like Ryan's fake performance. "What happened?" I asked. "Who was that woman in the morgue?" Dorothy wiped her eyes. The room was small, just a bed, table with a laptop, and her backpack. She looked exhausted, with a healing bruise on her cheek barely covered by makeup. "Her name was Helen Rodriguez," Dorothy said quietly. "She was a trafficking victim from Eastern Europe. Ryan bought her identification documents 6 months ago." "What are you talking about?" Dorothy opened her laptop and turned it toward me. The screen showed spreadsheets and documents. Ryan's been running an identity theft ring through his real estate contacts. He gets personal information from property transactions, then sells it online. He's made close to $180,000, but recently he got desperate. He owes money to some very dangerous people. I felt sick. How long has this been going on? At least 2 years. "But Harold, there's more. He's been after your money. He asked me to help convince you to add his name to your accounts. When I refused, things got bad between us." She stood and walked to the window. 2 weeks ago, he suggested we go hiking, just the 2 of us. I should have known better. Ryan hates hiking, but I thought maybe he wanted to fix our marriage. Eagles Peak Trail, yes. We got to a section with a steep drop-off. The path narrows with a cliff on one side. Ryan was walking behind me, and then... She touched her bruised cheek unconsciously. He pushed me. Jesus! I fell about 15 feet down to a ledge. Managed to grab some roots. I heard him on his phone calling 911. reporting that his wife had fallen and was probably dead. He never even looked over the edge to check. How did you survive? I waited until he left, then spent 2 hours climbing back up. I was in shock, I think, but I knew if I went back, if anyone knew I was alive, he'd try again. So I went to the bank, got as much cash as I could from our joint account, and disappeared. And the woman in the morgue? Dorothy's face darkened. Helen had been missing from a women's shelter for 2 weeks. She matched my general description. The body was too damaged from the fall to identify immediately, but she had a birthmark and scar that matched mine, because Ryan gave them to her. He tattooed the birthmark and cut the scar. I found evidence on his laptop. He'd been planning this for a month. He searched for women who looked like me, contacted people in illegal networks. She probably thought she was getting help, a new life. Instead, the rage hit me like a punch to the gut. We're going to the police right now. With what evidence? Screenshots I got by hacking his computer? Harold, he's your son. They'll think I'm lying, trying to frame him. She was right. Ryan would play the grieving husband perfectly. There has to be something, I said. Dorothy leaned forward. There is, but you're not going to like it. You have to make him think he won. Give him access to your accounts. Get him comfortable. When he is, he'll make mistakes. You want me to use myself as bait? Both of us. Because, Harold, I'm going to come back from the dead. Over the next 3 days, I played the grieving father-in-law while Dorothy and I planned. I went through funeral arrangements with Ryan, who pushed for cremation. It's what Dorothy would have wanted, he said. She always talked about having her ashes scattered in the mountains. Of course he wanted cremation. No body meant no more questions. At the funeral, I gave a eulogy that made people cry. Ryan stood beside me in his expensive black suit, holding my arm while I spoke about Dorothy's kindness and intelligence. All I could think about was how he'd pushed her off that cliff. After the service, Ryan pulled me aside into my study. Dad, I know this isn't the time, but Dorothy and I had talked about the future, kids, building a real life. She made me promise to take care of things if anything happened. Take care of you too. Here it comes, I thought. You're in good health, but you're 58. We need to think about estate planning. Dorothy would want me to help with this. The nerve of it. Using his supposedly dead wife to manipulate me. You're probably right, I said reluctantly. I've been putting it off. Let me help. I can set up meetings with your financial advisor. Maybe I should be added to the accounts, joint ownership, just in case something happens to you. It hurt to say it, but I watched Ryan's face light up. Are you sure? That's a big step. You're my only son. Who else would I trust? He hugged me. Over his shoulder, I saw his phone light up with a text from someone named Jay. Is it done yet? That evening, I called Dorothy on the burner phone she'd given me. He took the bait. We're meeting with my financial advisor next week, but there's something else. He's been texting someone called J. Jessica Collins, Dorothy said, his business associate. They've been having an affair for 6 months. She knows everything. The identity theft, his plans for your money. She's been helping him. Another betrayal, another layer. Does she know what he did to you? We're about to find out. The plan Dorothy laid out was risky, but it was our only shot at proving Ryan's guilt. First, I had to go through with adding Ryan to my accounts. It took a week to arrange the meeting with my financial advisor, Victor Thompson. Victor had handled my investments for 15 years and could tell something was off. Harold, this is a significant change, Victor said carefully. Are you certain? Absolutely. Ryan's my son. He should have access, joint ownership on everything except the trust my wife Beverly had set up before she died. That $1 million was untouchable, thank God. But the other $2.5 million, I was handing Ryan the keys. Ryan signed everything eagerly, barely containing his excitement. As we left Victor's office, he actually hummed. This is the right thing, Dad. Dorothy would be so relieved. I wanted to throw up. That night, Dorothy called. Phase 1 complete. Now we wait for him to move money. The moment he makes transfers, we'll have evidence. But, Harold, we need him to confess. He'll never confess. He will to Jessica. Men always brag to their lovers. We just need to record it. Dorothy had been busy. She not only hacked Ryan's laptop, but cloned his phone. She could see every text, call, email. What she'd found was damning. Months of messages between Ryan and Jessica, planning how to access my money, discussing the Dorothy problem, debating how to stage an accident. They talk about it openly, they think they're safe. But if you're wearing a wire and Ryan says the right things, that's admissible evidence. The problem was getting Ryan to confess to me. He was too careful around me, always playing the grieving widower. What if I have a health scare, I suggested. Something serious that would make him think he's about to inherit naturally. 3 days later, I collapsed at home. Ryan found me on my study floor gasping for air. The ambulance rushed me to Denver General with what looked like a major heart attack. The doctors I'd brought into our plan played along perfectly, talking about blocked arteries and emergency surgery. Ryan sat beside my hospital bed, holding my hand with fake concern. But Dorothy was monitoring his phone. He was texting Jessica constantly, excited that it's finally happening. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. That evening, I told Ryan I needed to update my will. "You're going to be fine, Dad," he said, but his eyes were calculating, just in case. "I want you to know where everything is: accounts, investments, properties. Can you get my laptop from home?" He left immediately. While he was gone, Dorothy snuck in wearing scrubs and a mask, setting up tiny cameras and microphones. When Ryan returned, I made a show of being weak and tired. "Pull up a chair. Let me walk you through everything." For an hour, I showed him a count: numbers, passwords, investment portfolios. He absorbed every detail like he was studying for an exam. Then, when I pretended to drift off, he stayed in the room and called Jessica on speaker like I wasn't even there. "Babe, it's happening," he said, voice giddy. "The old man's giving me everything. After surgery tomorrow, I'll have complete control." Jessica's voice came through clearly. "What if he survives? Then we move to plan B." But honestly, I don't think we'll need to. It's major surgery at his age. The risks are significant. "Did you talk to the surgeon?" "Didn't need to, but I made a generous donation to the hospital earlier today." "Very generous. I'm sure they'll be thinking about that when they're operating." They both laughed. I lay there listening to my son discuss my potential death like it was a business deal. "When do I get to see you?" Jessica asked. "I'm tired of being your secret. Soon. Once this is over, we can go public. We'll say we fell in love after the tragedy, that you helped me through my grief. People eat that up. And if anyone asks questions about Dorothy..." There was a pause. When Ryan spoke again, his voice was colder. "No one's going to ask questions. She's cremated, ashes scattered. Helen Rodriguez doesn't exist anymore officially. The shelter thinks she ran away." "You're sure you disabled Dorothy's phone GPS before you threw her off?" "Yes, babe. I disabled it 2 days before the hike. Told her it was broken. She never knew I'd been tracking her movements for a month to make sure she had nothing on me." My heart pounded. This was it. The confession. What if the real Dorothy survived somehow? Ryan laughed. "I watched her go over that edge. No one survives that fall. And even if she did, she's got nothing. No ID, no money, no proof. I froze all our accounts. She's a ghost." "You're brilliant." "This time next month, we'll be in Cabo with Dad's money." They talked for a few more minutes about laundering the money, buying properties in countries without extradition laws. Every word was recorded. When Ryan finally hung up, I kept my eyes closed. He checked on me once more, then left to celebrate. The moment he was gone, Dorothy emerged from the bathroom where she'd been hiding. She pulled off the mask, tears streaming down her face. "We got it," she whispered. "We got everything." I sat up, pulling off the fake monitoring equipment. "Call Detective Patricia Stone. Tell her to come now with backup." Detective Stone had been a friend of my wife Beverly's. When she arrived an hour later, Dorothy and I played the recordings. Her face went from skeptical to horrified to satisfied. "This is enough," she said. "Combined with the identity theft evidence and financial records, we can arrest him tonight." "There's one more thing," Dorothy said. "Helen Rodriguez deserves justice too. We'll need to exhume the body, compare DNA. "That'll take time," Stone said. "We have time," I said. "Ryan thinks he's won." But Stone shook her head. "Every minute he has access to your accounts, he could drain them and disappear. We move now." The arrest happened at 3 a.m. Ryan was at Jessica's apartment when Detective Stone and 6 officers knocked. He actually tried to jump out a second-story window before they tackled him. Jessica broke immediately, confessing everything for a reduced sentence. She confirmed Ryan had purchased Helen's identification, tattooed the birthmark, created the scar. She provided emails, texts, financial records. Airtight case. The next morning, Dorothy and I held a press conference. The local news had covered Dorothy Pierce's tragic death for 2 weeks. Now they got her resurrection. Dorothy stood beside me, very much alive, telling her story. The video went viral within hours. Ryan was charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, identity theft, and fraud. Jessica faced similar charges. The trial took 4 months. I had to testify against my own son. Hardest thing I ever did. Ryan stared at me from the defendant's table, eyes cold and hateful. All pretense finally dropped. When it was my turn to speak, I told the jury everything about the fake grief, the manipulation, the phone call where he discussed my potential death like a stock transaction. The jury saw the recordings, heard his voice planning my death, and bragging about murdering Helen Rodriguez. Ryan's defense attorney tried to paint him as a desperate man influenced by Jessica, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury heard him laugh about my surgery risks. They heard him call Dorothy a ghost. They heard him admit to tracking her movements and disabling her phone. The prosecution painted the picture clearly. Ryan Pierce was a calculating killer who murdered an innocent trafficking victim to fake his wife's death, then tried to murder his wife for insurance money and inheritance access. When that failed, he planned his own father's death during surgery. Jessica testified against Ryan as part of her plea deal. She broke down on the stand, admitting they'd planned the whole scheme for months. She confirmed Ryan had shown her photos of Helen Rodriguez, discussed the accident setup, and celebrated when they thought Dorothy was dead. The defense had nothing. Ryan never took the stand. His lawyer knew he'd only make things worse. When the verdict came in, the courtroom was packed. Local and national media had followed every day of the trial. The Back from the Dead case had captured national attention. We, the jury, find the defendant, Ryan Pierce, guilty of murder in the first degree, guilty of attempted murder in the first degree, guilty of insurance fraud, guilty of identity theft. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Ryan was led away in handcuffs, still not looking at me. At sentencing, I was allowed to speak. I stood at the podium, looking at my son for what I knew would be the last time. Ryan, you were my only child. I raised you, taught you right from wrong, gave you every opportunity. You chose greed over love, violence over family, money over morality. You murdered an innocent woman who came to this country seeking a better life. You tried to murder your wife, who loved you despite your flaws. You planned to murder me, your own father. My voice broke. I don't know the man sitting at that table. The son I raised died somewhere along the way, replaced by a stranger who values money more than human life. The judge sentenced Ryan to life in prison, without possibility of parole for Helen Rodriguez's murder, plus 30 years for the attempted murder of Dorothy and the fraud charges. Jessica got 25 years in a plea deal. People ask how I'm coping with everything that happened. Some days are better than others. I see a therapist twice a week, sold the house where it all went down, and moved to a smaller place in Boulder. The memories in that old house were too heavy to carry anymore. Dorothy's doing much better now. She transferred to a hospital in Seattle, got a fresh start where nobody knew her. Story. She started dating a doctor who works in her building, a kind man who understands what she went through. We talk every Sunday evening, usually around 6 p.m. She tells me about her week, her new life, the hiking trails she's conquered since moving to Washington. She sounds happy, and God knows she deserves that happiness. I've completely restructured my estate. The majority of my $3.5 million now goes to organizations that help victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, all in memory of Helen Rodriguez. She was only 23 years old when Ryan murdered her. She'd come to America looking for hope, for a chance at something better than what she'd left behind in Moldova. Instead, she found my son. I visit her grave sometimes at Riverside Cemetery. I'm the only one who does. Her family is still back in Moldova and can't afford to travel here. I set up a fund for them too, sending money every month to her mother and younger sister. It doesn't bring Helen back, but it's something. It helps her family know that someone here remembers their daughter, that her life mattered. The hardest part isn't the money or even losing Ryan to prison. It's the questions that keep me awake at night. How did I miss the signs? Where did I go wrong as a father? Was Ryan always capable of murder and I just couldn't see it? Or did something happen along the way that turned him into someone who could push his wife off a cliff and laugh about it later? My therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, says I can't blame myself for Ryan's choices. You didn't make him a killer, Harold, she tells me. You raised him with values. He chose to ignore them. But it's hard not to wonder about all those times I worked late on construction sites while he was growing up. All the Little League games I missed, all the conversations we never had. Last month I received a letter from Ryan. The prison chaplain had helped him write it, apparently. In it, he apologized for everything, said he'd been influenced by Jessica and the pressure of his debts. He claimed he never meant for things to go so far, that the murder was Jessica's idea. He asked for my forgiveness, said he wanted to rebuild our relationship, that he'd found God in prison and was a changed man. I read that letter 3 times, then walked outside and burned it in my fire pit. Some things can't be forgiven. Some relationships can't be rebuilt. And I've learned that just because someone shares your DNA doesn't mean they deserve your forgiveness. Instead of dwelling on what I lost, I focus on what I can control. I volunteer twice a week at Mountain States Legal Aid, helping refugees navigate the immigration system. I teach financial literacy classes at the Boulder Community Center every Thursday evening. Small things, but they matter. They help me remember that not everyone in this world is like Ryan, that there's still good out there worth fighting for. The construction skills I spent 35 years developing turned out to be useful in ways I never expected. Project management, attention to detail, working with deadlines, all of it helped when we were gathering evidence against Ryan. Dorothy always says I approach the investigation like I was building a house. Foundation first, then frame, then all the details that make it solid. Dorothy sent me a photo last week that I'll treasure forever. She's standing on Mount Rainier, arms spread wide, sunlight streaming across her face. She looks free, confident, alive. She's wearing hiking boots and has a huge smile. In the background, you can see for miles, mountains, forests, endless sky. The text that came with the photo said simply, "Thank you for believing me. Thank you for saving me." I had that photo framed and put it on my desk, right next to the picture of Beverly and me on our wedding day. On the tough mornings, when I wake up thinking about calling Ryan, when I forget for a moment that my son is in prison for murder, I look at that photo of Dorothy on the mountain. I think about her resilience, her courage to survive that fall and fight back. I think about Helen Rodriguez's family finally getting answers about what happened to their daughter. I think about Jessica Collins sitting in a cell somewhere, regretting the choices that brought her there. And I think about that moment in the morgue when I chose to trust a text message from an unknown number instead of accepting what everyone told me was true. How close Ryan came to getting away with it. How different everything would be if I hadn't listened to that inner voice that said something was wrong. But Dorothy survived, justice was served, and somehow so did I. That's the thing about betrayal, especially when it comes from your own child. You have 2 choices. Let it destroy you completely or find a way to transform the pain into something meaningful. I chose transformation. Every day I choose to keep going, to be better than the person who hurt me. Ryan made his choices. He chose greed over family, violence over love, murder over mercy. I've made different choices. When faced with protecting my son or protecting the truth, I chose truth. It cost me everything I thought I wanted, my only child, dreams of grandchildren, the vision of growing old surrounded by family. But I can look at myself in the mirror every morning. I can sleep at night. And when Dorothy calls on Sundays to tell me about her new life, about the man she's learning to love again, I know I played a part in making that happiness possible. That's worth more than any amount of money. That's worth more than a relationship built on lies and murder. That's worth everything. Sometimes the people closest to you can become the greatest strangers. But choosing truth over blood doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a person of integrity who refuses to let evil hide behind the word family. Real strength isn't protecting those who share your